Hey, Coach, so glad you found us. Couple things. First of all, subscribe. We love those people that subscribe. That's the first thing. Second thing is go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better. Let me help you win more games, less time, 30 plus years of coaching. Come join our community. It is unbelievable. There's nothing else like it. 14-day free trial. It's the only place you'll find that on the web. Let us help you become better basketball coaches. All right, let's head off to the video.
All right, welcome to High School Hoops. Not from the Fifth Quarter Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, but in the Blue Wire Studios in the Wynn Casino, which I have to stay at. That's my next thing. I have to stay here next time. It's really nice. Anyway, in Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's a balmy 58 degrees. What's it in Wisconsin, Jake?
My computer says like 41.
Oh, that's not bad.
So not much different.
I know we had a bunch of snow the other day.
We did. It was terrible.
It was pretty bad. And we're coming to the end of the high school basketball season in Wisconsin. I know.
Yep. Girls tournament starts this week. Your last week of regular season.
Yeah.
Not girls tournament. Playoffs.
I'm gonna tell all the high school coaches. So first of all, this is how crazy Coach Collins is. So here's what happened. We played a game on Friday. I don't know if you've watched that game yet, but we played a game on Friday and beat Madison West.
Well, you kind of blew them out, so I don't know if it was worth my time.
I got scolded by the officials, though. I was told I needed to build.
Then I'll have to watch it.
I was told I needed to build bridges rather than yell at them. That's a direct quote. He goes, "I'm going to go home mad because I should have given you a technical." And my response is, "Well, there's still time. You can give me one as I'm sitting here not doing anything." It wasn't a great. Anyway, so we won that game. It's Friday night. Easily 35. Could have gotten running clock. Won by 38, I think. And so then we leave the next morning for Vegas out of Milwaukee at 9 a.m. Land here at noon. Take a nap. Go to Adele for my wife. And then we're doing the podcast the next morning, Sunday morning. Fly out on a red eye, get back into Milwaukee at 1 a.m. Probably at the house about 3 a.m. Get up at 7 a.m. to go to school, have practice, and then we play Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday next week, end of the regular season. So that's how crazy
all three
Coach
games and all three games are conference games.
All three games are conference games.
Yeah,
and they all depend. They're all
how many are away and how many are home?
2 are home, 1 is away.
That helps.
That helps a little bit. But anyway, and I'm not 25 anymore. You know, I midnight last night. I'm ready to go to bed. Days that I would have stayed up really, really late. I would have stayed up really late. The Crab Saber cooled last night. So I always tell people that Craps is the second best game ever invented. Second best game ever invented.
What's first, basketball?
Of course it is. Thank you. I always say that to my students, and they pause, and they go, well, what's the first game? It's like, well, what do you think it is? It's like, but Craps is an awesome. I love Craps. It's a great game. Great game. And I'm a stats teacher, so it makes sense. Anyway, how are you? Winding the season down.
Good.
Let's talk some high school hoops then. What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I've been watching a lot of hoops lately.
You have been.
A lot of college hoops, a lot of high
your
school.
Scout on Team X, which I won't mention, was really good. It got canceled, but it was really good.
Yeah, I told my wife how frustrated I was at the weather that day. I said I watched them like 5 different games, man.
It was a great
5
Scout.
different games.
We might play them the first round too. You know, the seeds are coming out in like an hour and a half.
Yeah, they got their 3 o'clock. They got their 3 o'clock release party today.
The release party, yeah. Our state associations, high school state associations, trying to be like the NCAA's. It's like, okay, it really isn't. And then hire a committee to do it if you're going to do that.
Exactly. That's a good point.
Yeah, we just had that discussion. I know. People are looking much more, as I'm sitting here in the studios at the Blue Wire Studios in Vegas, and there's these glass things. People are looking more awake than they were a couple hours ago. I'm telling you. It's like it's 10:40, almost 11. I think people are slowly starting to move and figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for my kid's college education now that I lost it all at the craps table? But seriously, it's something like that. All right, so let's talk. I got a bunch of topics. We're just going to go through them. We'll go through what we have to do with them, and then we'll go on to the next one. So the first one is what to do to prevent foul trouble. So
I've been watching a lot of games,
Okay.
and I'm still noticing people getting in foul trouble at this point of the season. Don't you think at this point you should have that under control?
100%. I mean, so here's the issue I have with foul trouble. So it's
Okay.
two things. First of all, I kind of have the steadfast rule that if you pick up 2 fouls early, I'm pulling you. I'm going to sit you.
So you have some strategy in place.
I do.
'Cause I don't always think coaches have strategies in place.
I don't know if it's
I
always
think
a
they kind
good
of go by the
strategy.
feel of the game.
I don't know if it's a good strategy.
Well, it depends on what player it is too, especially if he's a scorer.
I know. It's like the 2017 state championship game. I pulled Jake, who plays for the Dallas Cowboys now, Jake Ferguson.
Yep.
You remember that? And I pulled him when he got 2 fouls.
Because
in the,
it was a bogus foul. It was a bogus foul.
It was a
Noise of the
bogus.
charge.
Don't get me started. I don't need to get more wired
Sorry.
this early in the morning. It was a horrible call. Horrible call. Anyway.
Well, it's 12:41 in Wisconsin, so
Okay. Anyway.
my body might be feeling a little bit different than your body.
It was a horrible call. I sat him because he had 2 fouls in the first half. I probably shouldn't have. We maybe win the state title because I think we win the next game if we win that one because that was in the state semifinals. And I sat him, and we never could get over the hump. Anyway, so there are times I think to play people with foul trouble. I think a good rule is to pull them
So
when they get.
what do you do in that situation if you got to keep a player in? What advice could you go?
I changed some. I changed. Yeah, it's switching. I think I changed defenses. I think
right. That's kind of part of the discussion that I really want to dive in today a little bit is what do you do if you got to keep that player on the floor? Are you switching defense, switch up matchups, alter your defense. I think there's ways around it,
Right. Well, there's a couple things. First of all, let's talk about the teaching point before we talk about the coaching point. So the teaching point is showing hands. Like you get the fouls because the hands are low. You get the fouls because they're swiping. When you show hands high, and the Badgers are not playing very well right now, and I think even Coach Gard would agree with that. They're not playing, and they're losing some games, but they do defensively show hands really well. That's a Wisconsin.
They do, and I would say some of the best basketball I've seen is the ability to. I think you can also train players to understand some of the key rules. Right, we all know that there's some key focuses when we started season, what referees are going to call, right? The hand check with the 2 hands, the difference between going at an angle compared to being straight up,
Right.
Like those are immediate fouls that you can get rid of by teaching and working with kids in your practice, right?
Well, again, going to the teaching points, I think it's showing hands. I recently had a discussion with one of my guards about this. It's like the foul up on top is different than the foul underneath. And they go, what do you mean it's a foul? I go, I understand. So I literally stopped practice and showed them the 3 spots that the coaches would be, not the coaches, the officials would be. I said, the official's right there. So they know where, they see it. Grandma sees it in the 3rd seat. That's the issue. So if grandma sees it in the 3rd seat, the official feels like they have to call it at that point. So
right,
you can bang underneath. You can do whatever you want under the basket. Like go watch an NBA or collegiate game. It's no different if it's high school basketball. It's like,
right.
So that contact is so much different. So I think the nuances for high school coaches that are listening to this is it's the teaching points. It's the showing the hands. It's explaining the type of fouls. Is taking a charge and getting your second or third one. That's a different type of foul than that stupid, silly little reach up top that everyone in the gym knows is a foul. Like everyone knows that's a foul. And if it isn't a foul, it looks like a foul. If it smells like a skunk, it's probably a skunk. Like, you know what I mean? It's just, it's getting into that teenage brain, that high school player brain. You have to simplify it so much for them to explain to them what you're talking about in terms of that foul
I think what
prevention.
makes it difficult though, because and even coaching for so many years, is that sometimes it's a tale of two halves though. Because sometimes refs will call it really tight early, right? And then
Right.
usually they'll call it, and then it's really hard for kids to adjust.
Well,
You know,
you look up there and it's 7-2. The foul ratio is 7-2.
right?
I can guarantee you from someone who's coached 600 high school basketball games, more than that, that at some point they're going to balance out that 7 and that 2. Because again, like I said earlier today, the accountant who's been working all day and just threw his bag in and is coming and officiating the game is having all these people harp at them. They're going to balance it out. So
It's also depending who's making the calls.
yes.
A lot of time it's one or two referees. So
Out of the
it might
three.
be a tale of two.
I guarantee that. So you'll love this. That happened last night. There was an official, three officials, and one of them had made a call, like in 20 minutes of the game. Of course, I turned to one of my coaches. I go, has he blown his whistle yet tonight? Of course, he blows his whistle like 3 straight times at that point. But you're right. It's like, it's who's under the basket. It's the rotation of the teams that causes who's going to make what specific calls, I think, too. Don't you think?
Yeah, and I also think that it depends on, you gotta delegate, and you gotta work with your coaches too to make sure they're keeping track of foul trouble too. I've been watching games this year where I would see foul trouble happening, and the assistant coach did not let the head coach know. Now, is it the head coach's responsibility? Yes, but if you delegate that, then it's not that situation. I've watched 3 or 4 games this year where girls have fouled out with 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, and they're like, "Oh, she had 4 fouls." Like, how do you let that happen?
Right. Well,
It happens more than you think, though.
we actually had a mistake the other night because my assistants told me one guy, and it should have been on the guy they told me, but the official called it on someone else. So I subbed the one out because I think he had 2 or 3 fouls. Well, then he comes out, but then I look up, and then they figure it out because the official messed up, to be honest with you. So it's like it's that communication. It's no different than with the kids. So what do you think? Anything else that you see with preventing fouls?
I like your point about teaching the kids the right way to play in regards to the emphasis. I think your hands up are great, moving your feet, and I think those are really, really good points. I mean, I think there's often a lot of body check fouls are a majority of the game, right? In my opinion, off the ball handler, right? And I think you have to prepare those players in practice, whether you're doing zigzags or, and constantly working on that every day, because that's where primarily a lot of the fouls, and then just eliminating stupid fouls, like this, and the ones that you just want to take your water bottle and throw, where a kid misses a shot, they get the rebound, he decides to hand check from 84 feet from the basket. It happens every game I watch.
Well, and
seriously,
and part of it's reading where you are, where the officials are. Yeah, there's no understanding of the entire game at all, like from a high school player. That's how you prevent fouls. It's like you don't put yourself in those situations. You're not going to go through a high school season and never have a foul, but you got to be able to read the situation. It's like, why is this a foul? Why are they calling that? The big one,
I just think those are really good discussion points.
Right. The big one I've seen recently is the moving screen up top.
Big time. Big time.
It's like, well, they lowered their shoulder. Like, they didn't lower. What are you talking about? They didn't lower their shoulder. They were standing straight up. That makes no sense to me that you would make that call. It's like they're not lowering their shoulder. Well, they moved. They're not moving that much. So I think that's the one that officials are really leaning into. Because again, it's an obvious call. I think it's the reason. Don't you think? I mean, that's my feeling. It looks obvious.
But I also think a lot of the fouls are happening around the perimeter because the game is so much more around the 3-point line. So I also think refs are just getting bored. They're so used to being 10 years ago where a lot of the fouls were occurring around the basket, which they're not anymore. They're happening way before that point. They're happening 20, 30 feet outside the basket because they're setting high ball screens. The game is so different than it was, 10 years ago. Right. It's just a different game. And I think they kind of get antsy, like, oh man, I got to call a foul. Like, at some point, like they feel like they got to have control of that game.
Do you think the game's gotten more physical? The high school game?
I don't think so.
I don't know. I mean, again, I'm going to age myself. The last podcast I talked about the Jack Sigma move, so that's how much I aged myself. But I
Right.
remember the Bad Boys. I remember
Yeah.
that was it was like the Jordan era. It was like
Oh, then I would tell you the game. Well, then I would say overall the game has gotten way more softer. Way more softer.
oh yeah, there's those guys
So, I mean,
Lambeer
no.
played because he was just physical. He just literally would
Yeah,
physically
but
beat
think
people
what Michael
up.
Jordan's numbers would have been if you get rid of defensive 3 seconds in the lane. Think about that. I mean, that's a whole nother topic of discussion.
Oh, trust me, that's a rabbit hole we do not want to go down.
No, but I'm just saying.
Player,
I mean,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, we don't need to make GOAT comments about anything today. But I mean, that's just a valid point. The game is a lot softer, but
John
the game is still
Havlicek.
built
I'll
around
go
the 3-point line.
John Havlicek, GOAT. There you go.
Okay.
I just saw a tweet on that recently. Actually, when you compare his statistics to Michael's, it's interesting. He's not the best player of all time. I'm just fooling around. But when you look at the number of championships and all that kind of stuff for Havlicek, anyway. It's interesting. All right. Anything else with foul trouble before we move on to the next?
No,
topic?
I think that was a good discussion.
Okay. All right.
Hey, Coach, so glad you enjoyed the video. Subscribe and like, and go over and check out teachhoops.com for coaches who want to get better.